Hello everyone, this is a follow-up video to the previous video that I've just posted, Ultimate Truth on channeling, aliens, and all of this. Please watch that one before you watch this one, because here I'm just going to clarify certain things which are actually extremely complex. So if you don't have that as a background, you probably not understand anything of what I'm going to talk about here. Here I'm going to cover the aspect of no time, retrocausality, infinite causality, chains. What does all of that mean? So let's start with infinite causality chains. From the point of view of God's source, infinity, any point in time in the universe can be thought of as the beginning. That is why there's no beginning and no end, because you sitting here in front of your computer watching this video, every move that you make is linked, causally speaking, to every single thing that ever happened and ever will happen. It reverberates into the past and into the future. Everything in the past is linked to what you've just did, like for instance move your finger. And everything that will happen in the future is also linked to that event, even if remotely, even if only so slightly. Explaining this as a metaphor, like for instance with gravity, or even with other forces, it never goes to zero. It always approximates zero, but it is never zero. So the weight of your body, the weight of your atoms, actually it has an influence on the entire universe. It's just that it's so small, so many zeros behind it, that people discard it as negligible and it doesn't make a difference. But it actually does, because if you just sum up things that are negligible into infinity, then suddenly it becomes non-negligible at all. And so what this means, and this is a very, very important concept to grasp, is that the whole universe, the whole of creation, thinks itself into creation at every point in time. That is, whatever you do from your point of view creates everything else into the past and into the future, and everything you do the minute after also creates everything into the past and everything into the future, and everything that anyone does creates everything into the past and everything into the future instantly. And that is from the point of view of infinity. From our point of view, we structure this experience as linear time. And again, here you'll have to bend your mind a little bit, because in the previous video I said that we are basically like the building block which creates all the possible futures where these alien races exist. And other people would say, but no, the first races that existed in the universe were other races that were, I don't know, reptilians, whatever, other humanoid forms. And we are not the first ones. Well, it depends on your point of view. Understand that since there is no time, the future and the past are constantly communicating and in a sort of a dialogue in creating, you create your past from your future and your future from your present, and all of this is tied, as I said, in this infinite causality chains, or you could even say it's retrocausality. Here is one way to put it. And that resolves the long, I've already discussed this example, the long example of which came first between the chicken and the egg. And it's both at the same time. So for instance, just take an example from linear time. Imagine you have an ape here, an ape. I cannot draw very well, so sorry, just assume that that's an ape. And you are here in your present. You start a fire camp with your friends. And the fact that you can start your fire camp is due to the fact that this ape had the idea or the intuition to grab a stick with fire, which enables all of the steps, the intermediate steps for you to be able to master fire later on. But the reason that this ape picked up this stick in the first place is because since there's no time, you sent a hint into the past for that ape to carry out that action. So the future, the past, the present, everything is tied together. And the reason why I'm saying we are a fractal variation from which everything can be recreated is because we are the part that is kind of out of alignment with the universe. And for the moment, it has to make sure that we stay aligned in order for all of the other realities to sort of stabilize. It is as if one part of reality was hesitating, as if this chimp was hesitating whether to pick up that stick or not. And if he doesn't do it, then it doesn't allow you to start a fire camp with your friends because you've never mastered fire. Maybe even you don't exist in that timeline. But you know, it's everything is so tied together that talking about past, present, and future it just doesn't make sense. You know, it's beyond our human comprehension. So there isn't anything that technically appeared first or afterwards. It is just everything is so interlinked that if one thing is out of place, then everything else is out of place. And you could say that it reverberates or has an impact on all of it. Again, using, for instance, another metaphor which is really useful. Imagine an orchestra of plenty of musicians that are playing a symphony. They're playing that symphony and they're playing it at the same time. And one of the musicians is out of tune. It actually spoils the entire symphony. You see? And so the fact that it plays in tune again, it sort of allows for all the rest to sound beautiful again. And you could say therefore that from your present, you're ruining the entire experience of the whole symphony into the future. Because if you keep playing out of tune, then you'll just ruin the whole experience. The whole symphony will sound like shit into the future. So it's almost as if you're like preventing the others to play well because your bad vibes or your bad vibrations that you're emitting here, the sound that you're making is going to interfere interfere or spoil the experience of all of the other musicians and the audience. And so you could say that all of the other players are sort of giving you tips on how to play in tune in order for the experience of the symphony in the future, which hasn't been played yet, to sound nice. And so this whole stop thinking about past, present, future. I use that because from our vantage point and our construct, mental construct, it's easier to think of all of these races as our potential future that we will create, just like all of these animals are a variation of that one living cell. But in fact, the entire creation from time immemorial to infinite time ahead that we will never get to experience, or well, we will, our souls will, but I mean here as humans we'll never comprehend it. Everything is tied together and is irrevocably impossible to disconnect. And since everything thinks itself into existence everywhere, everything sort of aligns itself into existence everywhere. So the fact that we play in tune then also helps another player to play better because he's inspired by the way that we're playing better now, so he can play better. And that one then also inspires another player to play even better his tune. And so you see, it's not really past, present, future here. It's just a matter of any action reverberates across all timelines, all futures, all past, simultaneously at the same time. I've discussed this no time aspect in some of my other videos. I encourage you to watch them because it's something that takes time to process. You cannot understand this in no time. It really you really have to stretch your mind to think beyond linear time and beyond what came first and what came after. It's just another metaphor I can give you is like a computer where you have the motherboard, you have the operating system, you have your graphics card, and the experience of what appears on your screen is linked to the interactions between all of those components. If one of those components is fried or doesn't work well, then what's going to appear on your screen is going to be shitty, regardless of whether the rest is in good shape. So let's just say that humanity is like one component inside that computer, which is kind of buggy and needs to be fixed, and then all of the other components then can work much better when that one works. If your graphics card is fried, then regardless of how good in shape your motherboard is, there's nothing that's going to be displayed on your screen. And so that's why I'm saying that everything is interdependent and interconnected, and the universe needs us to quote unquote ascend in order for the experience to be again in line with infinity. There are also other reasons for why I explain why we were kind of out of tune here, why we were playing out of tune, and that's the videos about perfect symmetry, about free will, about the what's special about this reality compared to all others. So again, you'll have to watch my other videos to understand this. But I hope this is much a bit more clear now. In clarifying the time conundrum and understanding this process a little better. Maybe just one last very easy to understand example of why speaking in past, present, future, it doesn't make sense anymore. Imagine if we invent a technology which allows us to travel through time. So speaking of 5D, people say that there's no more linear time in 5D. What prevents us as humans, once we reach 5D, to go into the 3D timeline and be the ones that create somewhere in the past the first so-called alien races like Lyrans or Pleiadians or whatever, reptilians, whatever you want. What prevents us from doing that? Once you can control time and once you can travel in time, then who knows who created you or who was first? Because once every single alien race has the technology to travel in time, they maybe all created each other mutually via this time game. To allow themselves to exist in 5D afterwards in the future. So it's, again, this dialogue between past and future it's an extremely complex kind of game where the future sends signals into the past in order for it to evolve, so that the future evolves then at the same time because of what happened in the past. And so you can think of humanity that invents technology to be able to travel through time, that sort of finds out via, sort of examining its story and the timeline that it's on and how it got to this point, that in order for them to evolve and invent something even better in the future, they need to create a sort of alien race that is going to change the timeline that they're on, and then from that they can experience something better. So once linear time is out of the window, once you're in 5D or whatever, it's impossible to decide which came first, who was first or who was last. Everything creates itself instantly. And you could say that Lyrans created humans and then humans created Lyrans. It's, you cannot extract any point in time and say that it's disconnected from the rest. It's connected infinitely to everything, and everything evolves sort of in at the same time. The one image that I used to to illustrate that is focus. So when you take a camera and you have it blurred and then you focus on an image, it doesn't unblur itself from one point of the image to the other point. It all sort of gains focus instantly across the entire image. It all becomes more focused. And that is how Source sort of evolves and creates and becomes aware of itself. That's how infinity explores itself. Imagine that parts of this picture, you could say that this is the past from your point of view and here's the future from your point of view. But Source sees this picture as just one thing, and it unblurs, or it comes into focus all at the same time, because every part of this image talks to every other part, and they all sort of evolve simultaneously and gain focus simultaneously. The image becomes focused at the same time, which means past, present, future come into focus simultaneously. I hope that was helpful, and don't hesitate to leave a comment.